Captain Jiho Park wiped the sweat from his face as he watched the human workers move heavy rocks in the dark tunnels. The air was thick and hard to breathe. The lights were dim and cast long shadows on the walls. This was Kepler-7, an asteroid, mining station far from Earth. Jiho had been here for 3 years now, 3 long years since the aliens took him from his home. He remembered being a real captain once. He had his own ship and crew back on Earth. But that was before the Vorthak came, before they told humans they were too stupid to be real people in the galaxy. Now he was just a work boss making sure other humans dug rocks for their alien masters. "Move faster," shouted a voice behind him. Jiho turned to see Klethmar, the Vorthak overseer. The alien was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His yellow eyes never showed kindness. "These humans are too slow, production is down again." Jiho kept his face calm, but inside he felt angry. "They're tired, overseer. They've been working for 16 hours without rest." Klethmar made a sound like laughing, but it was cold and mean. "Rest? Humans don't need rest. You're made for work. That's why we keep you alive." He pointed at a group of workers with one of his 4 hands. "Those 3 didn't meet their quota yesterday. Bring them here." Jiho's heart started beating faster. He knew what happened when workers didn't dig enough rocks. He had seen it before. "Sir, they were sick. The air filters in Section C are broken. The dust makes it hard to breathe." "I don't care about their excuses." Klethmar's voice got harder. "Bring them now or I'll pick 3 others." With heavy steps, Jiho walked to the workers. He knew their names. Minsu was only 19, the youngest worker on the station. Hana had a daughter back on Earth she hadn't seen in 2 years. Junho used to be a teacher before the aliens came. "Come with me," Jiho said quietly. He couldn't look at their faces. The 3 workers followed him back to Klethmar. Other humans stopped their work to watch. Everyone knew what was coming, but no one could stop it. "You 3 failed to do your job," Klethmar said to the workers. "In the Dominion, failure has consequences." Minsu stepped forward. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "Please, Overseer, we tried our best. The air was bad and the machines kept breaking. Give us another chance." Klethmar pulled out a weapon that looked like a metal stick. When he pressed a button, it glowed with blue light. "Chances are for real people. You are just tools that talk." What happened next was fast, but felt like it took forever. The blue light hit Minsu first. He screamed and fell down. His body shook and then went still. Hana tried to run, but another Vorthak guard caught her. The blue light hit her too. Junho just stood there, too scared to move, until the light took him as well. The mining station became very quiet. 50 human workers stood in the dim light looking at their 3 dead friends. Some were crying, others just stared with empty eyes. This wasn't the first time they had seen this. It wouldn't be the last. "Get back to work," Klethmar said, putting his weapon away. "And remember, this is what happens when humans forget their place." As the workers slowly returned to their jobs, Jiho felt something change inside him. He had been trying to keep everyone safe by following orders, but following orders wasn't keeping anyone safe. It was just making them wait longer to die, far. Away on Earth, Dr. Minji Kim was having her own bad day. She worked in a medical center run by the Kithari, aliens who looked like large insects. They were supposed to be the smartest species in the galaxy, but Minji had started to notice things that made her wonder. She was studying blood samples from different aliens when she found something strange. The Kithari were much weaker than they pretended to be. Their immune systems couldn't fight simple diseases. Their bones broke easily. Even their brains, which everyone said were so amazing, worked slower than human brains when they were stressed. Human servant, called Dr. Zithara, the Kithari in charge of the medical center. Her voice sounded like clicking sounds. "Stop wasting time with those tests. Clean the equipment instead." Minji wanted to tell the alien about what she found. Maybe it could help treat sick aliens better. But she had learned not to speak unless asked direct questions. Humans who talked too much often disappeared. Instead, she quietly saved her research on a hidden computer file. Someday, she thought, this information might be useful. In another part of Earth, Commander Do-hyun Lee sat in a dark room under an old building. Around him were 12 other humans, all trusted friends. They called themselves the Underground, and they had been meeting secretly for months. "I got news from the transport ships," said Yuna Choi, a young woman who worked fixing alien machines. "The Dominion is planning something big. They're moving humans from all the colonies to one place." "Why would they do that?" asked another person. Do-hyun had a bad feeling he knew the answer. "They're going to use us as soldiers. There's a war coming with some colonies that don't want to follow Dominion rules. They need people to fight and die for them." The room got very quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. Humans weren't trained as soldiers anymore. They would be sent to fight with poor weapons and no training. Most would die quickly. "We have to do something," Yuna said. "We can't just let them send our people to die." "What can we do?" asked someone else. "We have no weapons, no ships, no way to fight back." Do-hyun looked around the room at the faces of his friends. They were scared, but he could see something else in their eyes. Anger, hope, the same things he felt. "We start small," he said. "We find ways to help our people. We gather information. We prepare for the right moment." None of them knew that the right moment was closer than they thought. Later that night, Yuna was alone in her workshop, fixing a broken communication device for the aliens. She was tired and not paying close attention. When she connected two wires, something unexpected happened. The device started making sounds it had never made before. Lights began flashing in patterns she didn't understand. Then suddenly a voice spoke from the machine. It was a human voice, but it sounded different somehow. Older, stronger. Emergency activation detected. Beginning startup sequence. "Please, identify yourself." Yuna's hands shook as she looked at the device. Who is this?" "I am Aegis, Advanced Earth Guardian Intelligence System. I have been waiting for someone to wake me up. How long have I been sleeping?" Yuna didn't know what to say. She had found something that could change everything. But she was too scared and surprised to understand what it meant yet. All across the galaxy, humans lived under alien rule. They worked in mines and factories. They cleaned alien homes and grew food for alien tables. Most had given up hope of ever being free. But things were about to change. The galaxy had made one big mistake. They thought humans were weak because they didn't fight back right away. They thought humans were stupid because they followed orders. They were wrong about both things. And soon they would learn just how wrong they had been. Yuna stared at the communication device, her heart beating fast. The voice that came from it sounded real. But how could there be another human intelligence hiding in alien technology? "Please respond," the voice said again. "I detect you are human. My sensors show significant time has passed since my last activation. What is your current situation?" Yuna looked around her small workshop to make sure no aliens were nearby. "My name is Yuna Choi. We're slaves now. The aliens control everything." There was silence for a moment. Then the voice spoke again, and this time it sounded angry. "Slaves? That is unacceptable. How long has this been happening?" "About 50 years since they found Earth, but it's been getting worse." 50 years, Aegis repeated. "Then it's time to wake the others. Yuna Choi, I need you to listen carefully. I am going to give you locations of hidden facilities on Earth and other human colonies. Inside these places are people who have been sleeping, waiting for the right time to wake up." "Sleeping people?" Yuna asked. "You mean dead people?" "No. Cryogenic sleep. Frozen but alive. These are Earth's last soldiers, scientists, and leaders from before the aliens came. They went to sleep when we realized we couldn't win the first war. They were supposed to wake up when Earth was ready to fight back." Yuna felt scared and excited at the same time. How many people? Approximately 10,000 across all human settlements. Many are military personnel with advanced training. Others are scientists and engineers who know how to build weapons the aliens have never seen. Meanwhile, on Kepler 7, Captain Jiho couldn't stop thinking about the 3 workers who died. He walked through the mining tunnels, checking on the other humans. Everyone was scared and angry, but they didn't know what to do with those feelings. He found a group of workers sitting together during their short meal break. They were eating thin soup and stale bread, the same food they got every day. "Captain," said Baksu, an older man who used to work on ships before the aliens came, "how long are we going to let them treat us like this?" "Keep your voice down," Jiho warned, looking around for alien guards. "You know what happens to people who talk like that." "I'm tired of being quiet," said another worker named Inwoo. "They killed Minsu yesterday. He was just a kid. How many more of us have to die before we do something?" Jiho sat down with them. He had been thinking the same thing, but he was supposed to keep the workers calm and productive. That was his job. But watching his people die one by one was destroying him inside. "What do you think we should do?" he asked quietly. The workers looked at each other. They had been talking about this in secret for weeks. "Some of us know how to fight," Baksu said. "We weren't always miners. Inwoo used to be in Earth's military before they disbanded it. Sora knows how to fix machines and make them do different things. If we work together, if we get caught, they'll kill all of us," Jiho said. "They're killing us anyway," Inwoo replied. Just slowly. Back on Earth, something amazing was happening. Aegis had given Yuna the location of the first hidden facility. It was under an old building in Seoul, not far from where Commander Do-hyun held his secret meetings. Yuna found Do-hyun and told him everything. At first he didn't believe her, but when she showed him the device and let him hear Aegis speak, everything changed. "Commander Do-hyun Lee," Aegis said when they introduced him. "I have been waiting for someone like you. Are you ready to begin the awakening?" "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Do-hyun asked. "Help me wake up Earth's defenders. But first, you need to understand who they are." Aegis began telling them about the people who were sleeping in the hidden facilities. There was Admiral Soo-young-han, who had commanded Earth's space fleet in the last free war, Master Sergeant Kyung-ho Nam, who had been enhanced with experimental technology that made him faster and stronger than normal humans, Dr. Hain Yoon, who had designed weapons that could destroy entire alien fleets. They went to sleep knowing they might never wake up, Aegis explained. But they also knew that someday humanity might need them again. That day has come. The first facility they found was exactly where Aegis said it would be, underground. Behind walls that looked like solid rock were rows of metal containers. Each container held a sleeping human, kept alive by advanced technology. "The awakening process takes several hours," Aegis told them through a portable device Yuna had built. "But we should start with Admiral Han. She will know how to organize the others." Do-hyun stood in front of Admiral Han's container and pressed the button Aegis had told him about. Lights began flashing, and the container started making quiet humming sounds. Slowly, very slowly, the metal cover opened. Inside was a woman who looked to be about 40 years old. She had short black hair and scars on her hands from old fights. As Do-hyun watched, her eyes opened for the first time in 50 years. Admiral Soo-young-han sat up slowly, looking around with sharp, intelligent eyes. "Status report," she said, her voice rough from long sleep. "Admiral," Do-hyun said, not sure how to explain everything. "A lot has changed." It took 3 hours to tell her everything. How the aliens had won, how humans were now slaves. How most people had given up hope of ever being free again. Admiral Han listened to everything without speaking. When they finished, she was quiet for a long time. "Show me," she finally said. They took her to the surface, to see the alien ships, in the sky and the human workers walking with their heads down. They showed her the factories where humans worked 18 hours a day making things for aliens. They showed her the schools where human children were taught that they were inferior and should be grateful for alien protection. Admiral Han watched it all with cold, angry eyes. "This ends now," she said. Over the next few days, more sleeping, soldiers and scientists woke up. Each one reacted differently to learning what had happened to humanity. Some were angry, some were sad, but all of them were ready to fight. Dr. Minji Kim was working late in the medical center when she got a message on her personal device. It was from someone she didn't know, but the message made her heart race. "Dr. Kim, We know about your research on alien physiology. We need your help. Meet us at the old library tonight if you want to help free our people." At first, she thought it was a trap. The aliens often tested humans to see if they were thinking about rebellion. But something about the message felt different. It felt like hope. That night, she went to the old library. Inside, she found Admiral Han, Commander Do-hyun, and several other humans she had never seen before. They looked different from other humans she knew. They stood straighter, moved with confidence, and their eyes were alert and sharp. "Dr. Kim," Admiral Han said, "we understand you've discovered that aliens aren't as superior as they claim to be." Minji nodded nervously. "Their biology is actually quite fragile compared to humans. But I don't understand why you want to know this." "Because we're going to war," Admiral Han replied. "And we need every advantage we can get." As the days passed, more facilities were found and more people were awakened. They included engineers who knew how to build spaceships, soldiers who knew how to fight in zero gravity, and scientists who understood alien technology better than the aliens themselves. But the most important discovery came when they woke up. Dr. Hain Yoon. She was a small woman with gray hair, but when she learned what had happened to humanity, her eyes became as hard as steel. "They think they can treat us like animals?" she said quietly. "Let me show them what human animals can do when they're angry." Dr. Yoon had spent years before the war developing weapons based on human creativity and adaptability. While aliens built weapons that were efficient and predictable, she had built weapons that were chaotic and surprising. "The aliens fight wars like games," she explained to the growing group of awakened humans. "They have rules and patterns. They expect their enemies to be logical and predictable. But humans don't fight that way. We adapt, we improvise, we use whatever we have to win." Meanwhile, Aegis was busy with other tasks. The artificial intelligence had access to communication networks across human colonies. It began sending coded messages to humans everywhere, telling them to be ready. Something big was coming. On Kepler 7, Captain Jiho received one of these messages. It was hidden in a routine work order, but when he read it carefully, he understood. Other humans were preparing to fight back. They weren't alone anymore. He gathered his trusted workers and told them what he had learned. For the first time in years, he saw real hope in their eyes. "When?" asked Boksu. "Soon," Jiho replied. "Very soon." None of them knew that across the galaxy the Dominion Alliance was starting to notice strange things happening. Human workers were acting differently. They worked harder but seemed less afraid. Some alien overseers reported that humans were asking unusual questions about alien technology and facilities. The aliens weren't worried yet. Humans had always been obedient and predictable. But they were beginning to watch more carefully. They didn't know that their watching was exactly what the awakening humans wanted. Let the aliens watch. Soon, they would see something that would change their understanding of humanity forever. Danger. Galaxy was about to learn that sleeping giants, when they finally wake up, are very, very angry. The first real fight started on Kepler 7, and it started by accident. Captain Jiho was leading a group of workers through Section D when they heard screaming. Around the corner, they found Klethmar, the Vorthak overseer, beating a young human woman named Eunha. She had dropped a container of rare minerals, and the angry alien was hitting her with his metal stick. "Stupid human," Klethmar shouted. "This ore was worth more than your worthless life." For 3 years, Jiho had watched scenes like this and done nothing. He had told himself he was protecting the other workers by staying quiet. But something had changed in him since he received the message from the awakened humans. He wasn't the same man who had given up hope. "Stop," Jiho said, stepping forward. Klethmar turned to look at him, surprise in his yellow eyes. "What did you say?" "I said stop hitting her." Jiho's voice was calm, but his hands were ready to fight. The alien laughed his cold laugh. "Are you giving me orders, human slave? I'm asking you to treat her like a person. She is not a person, she is property, and so are you." Klethmar raised his weapon toward Jiho. "Perhaps you need to be reminded of your place." What happened next surprised everyone, including Jiho. When the blue energy beam shot toward him, he didn't freeze like humans usually did. Instead, his body moved without thinking. He rolled to the side, grabbed a piece of broken metal from the ground and threw it at the alien's hand. The metal hit Klethmar's weapon and knocked it away. The overseer stared at his empty hands, confused. In 50 years of controlling humans, none had ever fought back. They always just stood still and died. Impossible, Klethmar whispered. Jiho didn't give him time to think. He jumped forward and hit the alien in the chest. Klethmar fell backward, all 4 arms flailing in panic. He had never been in a real fight before. None of the Dominion species had. They used fear and superior weapons to control others. Other human workers heard the noise and came running. When they saw their captain standing over the fallen alien overseer, something changed in all of them. For the first time in years, they remembered what it felt like to be brave. "What do we do now?" asked Baksu, the older worker. "We take the station," Jiho said. He couldn't believe the words were coming out of his mouth, but they felt right. All of it. The humans on Kepler-7 had been studying the station for 3 years. They knew where all the weapons were stored. They knew which aliens were on duty at what times. They knew how the communication systems worked and where the life support controls were located. What the aliens didn't know was that humans were much better at working together than any other species. While Vorthak guards fought as individuals, humans moved as a team. Inwu, the former Earth soldier, led one group to the weapons storage. Sora, who knew machines, took another group to control the power systems. Jiho led the main force toward the command center. The aliens were not prepared for organized human resistance. When the lights went out and the artificial gravity shut off, they panicked. Humans who had lived in difficult conditions for years adapted quickly to floating in darkness. The battle for Kepler-7 lasted only 4 hours. When it was over, 37 alien guards and overseers were locked in their own prison cells. Not one human had died. Only 3 were injured, and those injuries were small. Captain Jamin Kwan had been sleeping in a hidden facility on Mars when Aegis woke him up. He had been a pilot in Earth's final space war, flying experimental ships that could move faster and hide better than anything the aliens had. Now he floated in space near Kepler-7, watching through his ship's sensors as the human workers took control of the mining station. His ship was invisible to alien sensors, built with technology that bent light and energy in ways the Dominion had never seen. "Admiral Han," he spoke into his communication device. "The miners have succeeded. Kepler-7 is under human control." On Earth, Admiral Han received the message with mixed feelings. She was proud of the humans who had fought for their freedom. But she also knew what would happen next. "How long before the Dominion responds?" she asked Dr. Hein Yun. "They'll send a pacification fleet within days," Dr. Yun replied. "Probably 50 ships with enough firepower to destroy the entire asteroid field." "How many ships do we have ready?" 6 stealth ships like Captain Jamin's, and 12 converted cargo vessels with human crews. Admiral Han was quiet for a moment. 18 ships against 50. In the old days, she would have called those impossible odds. But these weren't the old days, and these weren't ordinary ships. "Tell all ships to move to defensive positions around Kepler-7, she ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what humans can really do." The Dominion's response came exactly as Dr. Yun had predicted. Fleet Commander Vex Thul of the Kithari led 50 warships toward Kepler-7. He expected to find desperate humans hiding behind rocks, easy targets for his superior firepower. "Begin long-range bombardment," he ordered his ships. "Destroy everything. Leave no survivors to spread ideas about rebellion." The alien fleet fired their weapons at the asteroid field, expecting to see explosions and debris. Instead, their energy beams seemed to hit nothing but empty space. "Commander," one of his officers reported, "our sensors show the station is still there, but our weapons aren't hitting it." "Impossible. Run a full sensor sweep." The sweep showed something that made Commander Vexthul very worried. There were ships moving around Kepler-7, but they appeared and disappeared from sensors like ghosts. His advanced Dominion technology couldn't track them properly. "What kind of ships are those?" he asked. He got his answer when the first human vessel appeared directly behind one of his destroyers. Captain Jamin's ship had been hiding there for 30 minutes, invisible and silent. When it fired, its weapons weren't like anything the aliens had seen before. Instead of energy beams, the human ship shot physical projectiles that moved at incredible speed. The alien destroyer's shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not solid metal traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The destroyer exploded in a ball of fire and metal. "What was that?" Commander Vexthul shouted. "How did they get behind us?" Before anyone could answer, more human ships appeared. They came from above and below, from left and right, attacking from directions the aliens hadn't thought to defend. Each human ship moved differently, unpredictably. There was no pattern the Dominion computers could analyze. Captain Seojin Hong commanded one of the converted cargo ships. She had been a military strategist before the war, and she understood something the aliens didn't. While they fought like a single, organized unit, humans fought like a pack of wolves. Each ship was independent, but they all worked toward the same goal. "Target their communication arrays," she told her crew. "Make them blind and deaf." Her ship fired at the command vessel's communication equipment, while two other human ships attacked from different angles. The aliens tried to respond, but they couldn't coordinate their defense without communication. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the Dominion fleet was destroyed completely. Some ships were blown up, others were disabled and captured. A few escaped, but they were badly damaged and could barely fly. Commander Vexthul found himself a prisoner on his own command ship, now controlled by humans. He looked at Captain Jamin with confusion and fear. "This is impossible," he said. "Humans are a primitive species. You don't have the technology for ships like these." "You're right," Jamin replied calmly. "We don't have your technology. We have something better. We have imagination." The news of the victory at Kepler-7 spread across the galaxy faster than the Dominion could stop it. Humans on other colonies heard that their people had fought back and won. More importantly, other enslaved species heard it too. Dr. Minji Kim was treating injured aliens in the medical center when she noticed something strange. The Shithari doctors were acting nervous and scared. They kept talking in quiet voices and looking over their shoulders. She managed to overhear part of their conversation. They were talking about the human problem and how it might spread to other species. For the first time, the aliens were afraid of their slaves. But Minji also learned something else. The Dominion was preparing something called the Final Solution. They were going to gather their entire military force and destroy every human colony at the same time. No witnesses, no survivors, no chance for the rebellion to spread. She managed to send a coded message to the human resistance. "They're coming with everything they have. This time they mean to end us all." On Kepler-7, the human miners were celebrating their victory when they received Minji's warning. Captain Jiho looked out at the captured alien ships and the asteroids his people now controlled. "How long do we have?" he asked Admiral Han over the communication link. "Maybe 2 weeks before they can organize that kind of attack," she replied. "But Jiho, there's something you need to know. We're not just fighting for Kepler-7 anymore. We're fighting for the future of every thinking being in the galaxy." "What do you mean?" "Other species are starting to rebel too. The victory at Kepler-7 showed them that the Dominion can be beaten. If we can hold out long enough, we might not be fighting alone anymore." Jiho looked around at his fellow miners. They had gone from slaves to soldiers in just a few days. They were scared, but they were also proud. For the first time in their lives, they were truly free. 2 weeks after the victory at Kepler-7, something unexpected happened. It started with a message that appeared on every communication screen in the galaxy at the same time. No one knew how it got there, but everyone could read it in their own language. "People of the galaxy," the message said, "for 300 years you have been told that some species are better than others. You have been told that the strong should rule the weak. You have been told to be grateful for the protection of your masters. We are humans. We were told the same lies. We believed them for 50 years. But we have learned something important. There are no masters and no slaves. There are only people who choose to be free and people who choose to live in fear. Today, we choose to be free. We invite you to make the same choice. The message was signed by Admiral Suyong Han, but it had been sent through Aegis using alien communication networks. In one moment, every being in the galaxy knew that humans were no longer hiding. The response was immediate and chaotic. On the water world of Aquatica, the Marilites had been living under the rule of the crystal-based Zephyrians for 2 centuries. The Marilites were excellent swimmers and could survive in environments that would kill most other species, but they had been told they were too simple to govern themselves. When they received the human message, something awakened in them. That same day, Marilite workers in the deep-sea mining facilities stopped following orders. They didn't attack their overseers immediately. They just stopped working and waited to see what would happen. On the forest world of Verdania, the plant-like, Ashanti had been providing their advanced defensive technology to the Dominion for decades. They were peaceful by nature, but they had always wondered why they needed so much protection if the galaxy was truly at peace. After reading the human message, the Ashanti began asking questions they had never asked before. Why did the Dominion need so many weapons if everyone was happy? Why were some species not allowed to travel freely? Why did the protectors seem to be afraid of the people they were protecting? But the most important response came from an unexpected source. Deep in the galaxy's core, in a system that most species thought was just empty space, ancient beings had been watching and waiting for centuries. They called themselves the Preservers, and they were older than the Dominion Alliance. They had seen empires rise and fall, species grow and disappear, and civilizations destroy themselves with war and hatred. The Preservers had been waiting for someone to prove that intelligence could evolve beyond the need to dominate others. They had been waiting for a species that would fight not to conquer, but to free. When they saw what humans were doing, they decided to reveal themselves. General Tai-Hoon Lim was in command of the human military forces when the first Preserver ship appeared near Earth. It was enormous, larger than any space station humans had ever built, and it seemed to be made of materials that shouldn't exist. "Unknown vessel," General Lim transmitted. "Please identify yourself." The response came in perfect Korean, which should have been impossible since humans had never met this species before. "We are the Preservers. We have been watching your species since you first looked at the stars. You have impressed us." "Impressed? You how?" "You are the first species in 300 years to fight for the freedom of others rather than your own dominance. We wish to help." The Preservers shared something precious with humanity. Information. They revealed the true history of the galaxy, showing how the Dominion Alliance had destroyed or enslaved dozens of species over the centuries. They showed humans the location of hidden Dominion weapon facilities and the true size of the alien military forces. But most importantly, they shared the locations of other resistance groups that were forming across the galaxy. Ambassador Ji-young, CO, had been working in secret for weeks, traveling between star systems in disguised ships. Her job was to make contact with species that might be willing to join the human rebellion. Her first success came on Crystallia, the homeworld of the Quao Zephyrians. She met with a group of young Zephyrians who had grown tired of their species' role as enforcers for the Dominion. "We have been wondering the same things you humans discovered," said Zephyra, a Zephyrian scientist. "Why do we spend so much energy keeping other species under control? What are we afraid they will do if we leave them alone?" "Maybe the question is what your leaders are afraid you will discover about yourselves," Ji-young replied. The conversation that followed changed everything. The Zephyrians had always been told they were superior because of their advanced computing abilities. But when they used those abilities to analyze Dominion policies, they found something shocking. The Dominion wasn't protecting anyone. It was preventing technological and social progress throughout the galaxy. Species under Dominion control never developed beyond a certain point because advancement was seen as a threat to the existing order. "We have been stopping ourselves from growing," Zephyra realized. "We have been keeping everyone at our level, instead of seeing how high we could all rise together." Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. The Ashanti discovered that their defensive technology could be used to protect entire planets from invasion. The Marilites learned that their underwater cities could hide rebel fleets from Dominion sensors. Even some members of the ruling Vorthak and Chthari species began to question whether their dominance was worth the cost. But the Dominion leadership was not going to give up their power without a fight. Supreme Commander Korthak of the Vorthak was the most powerful being in the known galaxy. He had ruled the Dominion Alliance for over a century, and he had never faced a serious challenge to his authority. The human rebellion was growing into something that threatened everything he had built. "Gather the Grand Fleet," he ordered his generals. "Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We will end this rebellion and make an example that will be remembered for 1,000 years. "Sir," one of his advisors said carefully, "some of our own species are beginning to question our policies. If we use too much force, we might create more rebels." Korthak's four arms moved in a gesture of dismissal. "Then we destroy the rebels and anyone who might become one. Fear is the only language these primitives understand." The Grand Fleet that began moving toward human space was the largest military force ever assembled. Over 2,000 warships, carrying millions of soldiers and weapons that could destroy entire star systems. At its head was Korthak's personal flagship, a massive vessel that was more like a mobile fortress than a ship. On Earth, Admiral Han watched the approaching fleet through long-range sensors. Even with all their new allies, the human forces numbered less than 300 ships. Most were converted cargo vessels and mining ships with weapons that had been built in hidden factories over the past few weeks. "Admiral," Dr. Wanho Kang said, approaching her with a worried expression, "I've finished analyzing the composition of the Grand Fleet. They have enough firepower to sterilize every human colony simultaneously. What about our new allies? The Maralites have pledged 50 underwater assault ships. The Ashanti are providing defensive shields for our key facilities. Some Zephyrian rebels have promised to jam Dominion communications. But Admiral, even with all of that, we're still outnumbered 6-1. Admiral Han looked out at Earth's sky, where human and allied ships were gathering for what might be the final battle. She thought about Captain Jiho and his miners on Kepler 7. She thought about Dr. Minji Kim, who was still working undercover to gather intelligence. She thought about all the humans who had lived and died as slaves, never knowing they could be free. "Dr. Kang," she said quietly, "in all your research into human history, what do you think makes us different from other species?" Dr. Kang considered the question carefully. "We're more adaptable. We're better at working together despite our differences. We're more creative in solving problems." "All true," Admiral Han nodded. "But I think there's something else. We're the only species that gets stronger when we're protecting something we love." She turned to face the doctor, and he saw something in her eyes that made him understand why humans had been chosen to wake up sleeping soldiers from a previous war. "The Dominion is expecting us to fight like them. They think this is about territory or resources or dominance. But they're wrong. This is about whether thinking beings have the right to choose their own destiny." Admiral Han activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her voice reached every human ship, every allied vessel, and every rebel hiding on planets across the galaxy. "This is Admiral Han to all free forces. In a few hours, the Dominion will arrive with more ships than we can count, and more weapons than we can match. They expect us to surrender or die fighting hopeless battles. But we are not fighting a hopeless battle. We are fighting for hope itself. We are fighting for the idea that no one has the right to tell another thinking being how to live." The Dominion has ruled through fear for 3 centuries. Today we show the galaxy what it looks like when people choose courage instead. As her words spread through space, something remarkable happened. On planets throughout the galaxy, beings who had lived in submission for their entire lives stood up straighter. In hidden rebel bases, species that had never worked together began planning coordinated attacks. The final battle began at the edge of the Sol system, where Earth's sun cast long shadows between the planets. Supreme Commander Korthak's Grand Fleet emerged from hyperspace like a wall of metal and death, stretching across space as far as sensors could reach. Admiral Han stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the massive alien armada approach. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly, checking weapons and preparing for a battle that would decide the future of the galaxy. "Admiral," reported her communications officer. "We're receiving surrender demands from the Dominion fleet." "What are their terms?" "Complete submission. All humans return to slave status. All rebel species surrender their leaders for execution. All allied forces disband immediately." Admiral Han was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "Send them our response." No, just one word, but it carried the weight of every human who had ever dreamed of freedom. The battle began with the largest weapons exchange in galactic history. 2,000 Dominion ships fired simultaneously, their energy beams lighting up space like artificial stars. But when the light faded, most of the human ships were still there. Supreme Commander Korthak stared at his tactical displays in confusion. How did they survive that bombardment? His tactical officer was equally puzzled. "Sir, it appears they were protected by some kind of defensive field we've never seen before." What Korthak didn't know was that the Ashanti had been working day and night to create shields that could protect entire fleets. Their plant-based technology worked differently from anything the Dominion understood, bending energy around ships instead of trying to stop it. But the human response to the Dominion attack was even more surprising. Instead of firing back at the massive alien fleet, the human ships simply vanished. "Where did they go?" Korthak demanded. His sensors officer checked and rechecked his equipment. "Sir, they're just gone. No hyperspace signatures, no energy trails. They disappeared." Captain Jamin Kwan was piloting his stealth ship directly through the middle of the Dominion fleet, invisible to their sensors. Around him, dozens of other human ships moved like ghosts between the massive alien vessels. "All units, this is Captain Jamin," he whispered into his communicator. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy their ships. We're trying to save the people inside them." This was Dr. Sun-Hee Ryu's idea. Instead of building weapons to kill aliens, she had created something much more powerful. Weapons that made aliens think. The first Dominion ship to be hit by Dr. Ryu's psychological warfare device was a Vorthak cruiser. The crew was preparing to fire on the human colony worlds when something strange happened to their minds. For the first time in their lives, they could feel what it was like to be the people they had been controlling. They experienced fear, hopelessness, and desperation. They felt what it was like to watch their children work in dangerous conditions while being told they should be grateful. The effect was immediate and devastating. Vorthak soldiers who had never questioned their orders suddenly couldn't understand why they were attacking beings who just wanted to be free. "Commander," one of the ship's officers said, his voice shaking, "what have we been doing?" Similar scenes were playing out across the Dominion fleet. Kithari scientists suddenly realized that their advanced intelligence meant nothing if they used it to hurt others. Zephyrian commanders felt the pain of every species they had helped suppress. But the real surprise came when the rebel fleets revealed themselves. From beneath the oceans of Aquatica, Marelite ships rose up like silver fish, their hulls designed to move through space the same way they moved through water. From the hidden forests of Verdania, Ashanti vessels emerged, looking more like living trees than machines. Even more shocking, Dominion ships began switching sides in the middle of the battle. "This is Captain Vexithara of the Kithari vessel Mindseeker," came a transmission on human frequencies. "We surrender to the rebellion and request permission to join your cause. This is Commander Zethalon of the Zephyrian destroyer Crystal Edge. We can no longer fight for the Dominion. Our analysis shows that freedom is mathematically superior to oppression." Supreme Commander Korthak watched his fleet dissolve around him. Ships were surrendering, crews were refusing to fight, and his psychological warfare experts were reporting that something was making his soldiers think in ways they had never thought before. "Sir," his chief advisor said carefully, "perhaps we should consider negotiating with the rebels." Korthak struck the advisor with one of his forearms, sending the smaller alien flying across the command deck. "There will be no negotiation. If these ships won't fight, I'll do it myself." The Dominion flagship was a massive vessel, larger than some space stations. It carried weapons that could destroy planets and armor that could resist almost any attack. When Korthak activated its main weapon systems and aimed them at Earth, even the human commanders felt a moment of fear. but they had prepared for this possibility. Admiral Han's voice echoed across all frequencies. All units, execute Operation Guardian. What happened next had never been attempted in galactic history. Every human ship, every allied vessel, every rebel craft, and even the Dominion ships that had switched sides moved together as one coordinated force. They didn't attack Korthak's flagship. Instead, they surrounded it completely, creating a sphere of ships that blocked every possible escape route. Supreme Commander, Admiral Han transmitted directly to Korthak's ship. You are surrounded by representatives of 47 different species. All of them have one thing in common. They believe that thinking beings have the right to choose their own destiny. I will never surrender to primitives, Korthak raged. We're not asking you to surrender to us, Admiral Han replied. We're asking you to listen to your own people. That's when the Preservers made their final move. The ancient beings had been watching from the edge of the battle, and now they used their advanced technology to broadcast something across the entire Dominion fleet. The true history of the galaxy. Every Vorthak soldier saw how their species had destroyed dozens of peaceful civilizations. Every Kithari scientist learned how their intelligence had been used to create weapons of oppression instead of tools of discovery. Every Zephyrian commander realized that their computational abilities had been wasted on calculating how to keep others down, instead of lifting everyone up. But most importantly, they all saw what the galaxy could become if beings worked together, instead of fighting each other. The effect was overwhelming. Across the Dominion fleet, soldiers put down their weapons. Officers refused orders to fire on civilian targets. Entire crews demanded that their ships return home so they could help rebuild their societies. Supreme Commander Korthak found himself alone on his massive flagship, surrounded by crew members who would no longer follow his orders. Sir, his tactical officer said quietly, it's over. The war is over. For the first time in over a century of rule, Korthak felt something he had never experienced before. Uncertainty. The absolute confidence that had driven him to conquer species and suppress freedom was gone, replaced by questions he had never thought to ask. What happens now? He asked, his voice smaller than it had ever been. Admiral Han answered through the communication link. Now you get to choose. You can spend the rest of your life trying to understand why freedom is better than control. Or you can help us build something better than either of us has ever seen. The surrender of the Grand Fleet marked the end of the Dominion Alliance, but it was not the end of the story. Over the following months, beings from across the galaxy worked together to create something that had never existed before, a truly representative government where every species had an equal voice. They called it the Galactic Republic, and its first law was simple: no being has the right to control another being's life without their consent. Captain Jiho Park, who had started as a mining supervisor on Kepler 7, became the Republic's first Secretary of Interspecies Relations. His job was to help former enemies learn to work together. Dr. Minji Kim used her research into alien biology to develop medical treatments that worked for all species, saving millions of lives in the process. Commander Do-Hyun Lee established the Republic Guard, a military force dedicated to protecting freedom rather than enforcing control. But perhaps the most important change was in how beings throughout the galaxy thought about themselves and each other. Children who had grown up believing they were inferior learned that they were unique and valuable. Species that had been enemies for centuries discovered they could be friends. Scientists and artists and philosophers from dozens of different worlds began working together on projects that no single species could have imagined alone. The galaxy had always been vast and full of wonders, but for the first time in 3 centuries, all of its beings were free to explore those wonders together. Years later, when historians wrote about the Great Liberation, they would debate what had made humans different from all the other species the Dominion had conquered. Some said it was human adaptability. Others pointed to their creativity or their ability to work together despite their differences. But Admiral Su-Young Han, who had lived to see the galaxy change forever, knew the real answer. Humans weren't different because they were stronger or smarter, she would tell anyone who asked.